Francis Ngannou has shocked the world yet again, and I couldn't be happier for him and for his entire team. Because if you know anything about not only what he's gone through over the past 2 to 3 years, but more importantly over the course of his entire life, you would know that there's no one more deserving of the praise he's gotten over the past 48 to 72 hours. He just went toe-to-toe with arguably the best heavyweight of this generation, someone who Mike Tyson says is the greatest boxer of all time. And I mean, yeah, that's obviously a stretch, but let's not sit here and act like Tyson Fury didn't look completely unbeatable at times. And here comes this guy who's never had one professional boxing fight and arguably beats him. In my eyes, he beats him. I had it 95 to 94. I do not see how that judge gave it a 96-93 Fury, and just about the entire world, I have yet to see one person disagree with the fact that Francis won the fight. And I mean, if you want to make the argument that maybe Tyson won on the scorecards, maybe he won the boxing match, yes, I understand what you mean by that. But by no means did Tyson Fury win the war. Look at how they both looked after the fight. Who looks like they were the heavyweight champion of the world prior to this fight, and who doesn't? About a year ago, Francis made the decision to leave the UFC in pursuit of his dreams, to box. He wanted to box the biggest names because he thought, and more importantly, he knew he belonged in the ring with the absolute best in the world. And they all laughed at him. Not a single soul in the MMA or boxing community thought that he had a chance going up against guys like Tyson Fury. And more importantly, people didn't even think that he could get this fight. I mean, Dana White started spinning it once he realized that Francis didn't want to come back to the UFC.
Thinks like that he's in a position where he's got some Conor McGregor Mayweather fight on his hands, which he does not. Francis is in a place right now where he doesn't want to take a lot of risk. Feels like he's in a good position where he could fight lesser opponents and make more money.
Now just imagine if Dana White would have stuck by him, given him his wish, allowed him to fight Tyson Fury, co-promote, make Francis into arguably your biggest star as your heavyweight champion, and then put him in a fight against Jon Jones. That would have been the biggest fight in UFC history. And even once he got the fight, contract signed, everybody still thought that this dude had no chance and no business stepping in the ring with Tyson Fury. I mean, the boxing community was ruthless to this dude and to Tyson because they were like, what the hell are you doing? There's more worthy challengers out there. You're scared of Usyk. I understand the Usyk stuff, don't get me wrong, that fight should have already happened, but let's not sit here and act like everyone didn't just completely discredit Francis, completely write him off, completely act like he had no business being in there with him. And I mean, to an extent I can understand that, but let's not count the chickens before they hatch. You got to give this guy a chance. If you hear his story, you know that all he's done throughout the entire course of his life is defy the odds. So why do you think that this would be any different? And a month before the fight, somehow Usyk vs. Fury was signed for 2 months from now in late December. I mean, that was just completely writing off Francis, completely thinking, yeah, he has no chance. Even Tyson Fury, I think 2 days before the fight, said this.
Usyk has to fight me in December, he doesn't have a choice. He signed a contract, so if he doesn't, he's breached contract and he gets sued.
And now he's saying this.
I'll see you all sometime next year. Have a good Christmas if I don't see you, and a happy new year.
Then his open workout videos start to drop left and right, and the MMA and boxing community all come together as one to clown him and basically say, you got no chance stepping in the ring with Tyson Fury. But this is why combat sports is my favorite, because on any given day, in any given fight, anything is possible. I mean, in the UFC, I think 3 of the 4 last pay-per-views, in the main event, the underdog has won. And yeah, it's a little bit less common in boxing, but let's not sit here and act like it still doesn't happen. And to make the story even more special, Francis decided against hiring a traditional boxing coach and sticking with his guys, Eric Nixick and Dewey Cooper, who were his main MMA coaches. That is loyalty at the highest level. To have that level of confidence going up against the best heavyweight in the world, knowing that these guys got your back, there's a level of trust that comes through those, maybe 10 plus years that they've been together. And I don't think that a traditional boxing coach can replicate that in such a short amount of time. Also, I want to give a quick shout out to Bespoke Boxing for creating Francis's fight kit. This is one of the most beautiful fight kits I've ever seen. I love all the details of it. It feels like I get the Black Panther vibes from it. Also, it kind of reminds me a little bit of Damien in Creed 3. I know that may be a little bit cheesy, but it just looked cool. I love the entire ambiance of it. I love the writing of his name on the shorts. He walked in there truly looking like the baddest man on the planet. Possibly my favorite side effect of this entire fight, besides knowing that Dana White is somewhere out there absolutely seething at the fact that Francis bet on himself and won, is the tears of boxing purists. Why is it gotta be that Fury had an off night or a bad training camp? Why can't it be that Francis was a very tough opponent and styles make fights, hence why he was so successful? This is the one fight where Fury couldn't completely manhandle his opponent because of the size discrepancy. Francis is almost as tall as him, and they weighed, I think, about the same on fight night. And trust me, that made a big difference. I think there's a big argument to be made that Francis is also stronger than him, and that played out in very interesting ways throughout the 10 rounds. Now, I'm not saying that it was definitively rigged, but 96 to 93 for Fury is absolutely egregious. Now again, I'm not saying that it was rigged, but it does seem like there was some incentive to sway the decision Fury's way with Usyk and Fury already signed, especially with it set to be in Riyadh, where they were finally set to get the fight that potentially puts Riyadh season into legitimacy, the heavyweight undisputed championship. To me, the silver lining of this loss for Francis Ngannou is that he is now a real player in the boxing heavyweight division, and even the president of the WBC said that he'd be ranked as a top 10 heavyweight right after the fight. Oh, and who would have thought in a fight with the MMA fighter that Tyson Fury would be the one to throw an illegal elbow? And a lot of people are arguing whether this was intentional or not. I'll let you guys be the judge of it though. Again, after the fight, who looks like they were in a war and who doesn't? It's funny how Fury says that Francis really only landed that one shot but looks like this, while Francis looks like this. Like I said at the very beginning of this video, Tyson may have won the match, but Francis won the fight. Plain and simple. Oh, and while we're at it, Eddie Hearn for saying that Francis had no business being in the ring with Tyson, but now is begging Francis to fight Anthony Joshua.
Francis Ngannou against Anthony Joshua, perhaps in Africa, perhaps the Rumble in the Jungle 2, is one of the biggest fights in the history of the sport. And I promise you this, respect to Francis, easy work for my man.
However, I truly believe that we're gonna see Francis Ngannou versus Anthony Joshua next, and here's the catch. I truly believe that it's gonna take place in Africa. And if you know anything about Francis, you know how much pride he takes in his home continent of Africa. To have him bring boxing back to Africa would be one of the most special things I've ever seen in my entire life. And back to what I said earlier in this video, there would be no one on earth more deserving of that potential praise that he would get for bringing boxing back to that area. And I couldn't envision a more perfect storybook ending to the movie of Francis Ngannou's career than a win versus Anthony Joshua in Africa. If you thought this was special, it would pale in comparison to Francis in Africa. To me, Francis Ngannou is already the best story in the history of combat sports, but it's crazy to say that we might just be getting started.